said, if you're a lawyer and you're not involved in the civil rights struggle, you're a parasite on society. That's a strong statement. That's a strong statement. You don't think about that as being, Supreme Court, but that's the Justice Marshall. So with today, with this program, what we want to capture is that kind of a spirit. And so let's break down some barriers today. How about doing that? And how about setting a great example for all those young people who may be sitting back there and they want to see that we can all break down these barriers. And so with that, I'm very proud to serve as the new director of the Thurgood Marshall Social Justice Advocacy Project and as the new general counsel, and the best is yet to come.
The branch of Detroit is not only known as the biggest and the baddest, the oldest and the boldest, the most revered for no particular reason, but it has a lot to do with this next individual. Reverend Anthony is serving in his 10th term as president. That's 20 years of dedicated service and commitment. Let's give our president a round of applause.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. We're certainly pleased to have all of you here. Let me say good afternoon to everybody that is here. And this is a tremendous gathering on a Saturday afternoon at the end of April when folk could be out doing a whole lot of other things. But because you recognize the significance of what this is and what this is about, you are here. And so we thank you and we applaud you. We're glad to have you here. We're here because we want to discuss these issues of hate and what it does to a community and how we can improve the community by working together. And so we've invited representatives from the Muslim community, from the Hispanic Latino community, from the African American community, from the Jewish community, from the Native American community, from the gay community, from all communities that we believe have been negatively impacted. We're sorry that those brothers and sisters that we invited from our Jewish community are not here today. They made a different decision, but we believe that one of the things that we should be able to do is to come together and to discuss these issues so that we can make some different decisions about how we engage each other. And so I'm pleased that the Detroit branch NAACP, on the eve of the Fight for Freedom Fund dinner, the 56th annual Fight for Freedom Fund dinner, the largest dinner of its kind in the world, the largest branch in the world, the largest youth council in the world, the biggest, baddest, boldest branch in the world is having this right here on the river in Detroit. And this place is filling up. As I'm talking, it's still filling up. And I have to pause and introduce one of our living icons.
You're here.
Living icons. It's not always you get a chance to touch history, to touch somebody that had she and others not did what they did, we would not be sitting here today. How many of you have heard of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? Raise your hand. Amen. How many of you know that Dr. King had to give speeches? How many of you know that Dr. King had to have meetings? How many of you know that Dr. King had to make phone calls and use the phone? How many of you know that he had to have an office somewhere? How many of you know that he had to have somebody to remind him, to schedule him, to get his phone calls, to tell him where he needed to be, when he needed to be there, to make sure he got to get him a sandwich every now and then, to talk to him when nobody else was around, to hold his head up when you all knocked it down, to let him know that there's something in you that you cannot let go. God put you here for a particular reason. Well, we have that someone with us today. She is the founder of the Trumpet Awards, which are seen in 185 countries, seen all over the world, where she honors people who give service every year. You've seen it on TV. It was just on TV last Sunday. She is the founder and president and CEO of that. But before she became that, she was the personal secretary to the King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. She's none other than Zanona Clayton. Stand up, Miss Clayton. Give her a big hand. The personal secretary to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Right there. And so, Ms. Clayton, we thank you for making sure he got to be where he needed to be on time. Amen? Amen. Thank you very much. She's going to be honored tomorrow with our James Weldon Johnson Lifetime Achievement Award at our dinner. So make sure you get your tickets. It's the hottest ticket in town. I'm going to move now to begin our forum. We're very pleased to have this gentleman from down the street, so to speak. He is a professor, well-educated. He's done research. He's done many presentations all across the country. We've seen him recently at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, making this presentation, us versus them, using the symbols of the racist memorabilia of the past to try to bring it all together to see how this negatively impacts various communities. He has lived this, he breathes this. He's here in Detroit. He had not planned to be here, but I put on my ministerial persuasive voice and asked him to really come here. He came here. He had surgery recently. That's why you see just one limb that is moving, but God wanted him to come and use not that limb, but his mouth and his intellect, and he's doing it. Please welcome. He's going to begin our presentation with his presentation, and then I'm going to turn it over to one of the region's finest, Devin Skillian, who's going to serve as our moderator with the panel. But join me in giving a Detroit, Michigan welcome to Dr. David Pilgrim, professor of Ferris State University, who's going to begin our presentation with them. Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be good, and we're just excited about having you all here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. You said it was all right if I move around, right? Okay. Couple quick things. I'm a little bit injured today. These bodies come with about a 40-year warranty, and I'm in the extended warranty now. But there's nothing wrong with my mouth, and there's nothing wrong with my heart, so I can still do what I do. I want to start with a little story. They told me I only had 2.5 hours, so I want to get... All right, when I joke, I'll do this right here. You can walk in a store, a restaurant, ball game or whatever, no one stares at you. Unless you're in Vermont or something. I mean, generally speaking, no one stares at you. You don't look different. But imagine if you had tumors hanging from your face, or if you had a third arm, or if you had a birth defect that was so noticeable that you couldn't hide it. People who have these type of birth defects have lives unlike anybody in this room. When I was a student at Ohio State University, don't start me with the Michigan stuff. See, he asked me about the coach. We were talking about hate, and he hating on the red vest, okay? When I was at The Ohio State University, my master's thesis was to try to find out what was the quality of life for people with these types of birth defects. And so I did what a lot of people talk about doing. I went away and joined the circus, actually a carnival, and traveled. And my job was to sell tickets to the sideshow. I don't use the word freak. It is the real F word. And it is similar in its hatred and venom to the N word. But those are the people I'm talking about in the so-called freak show. So I was there getting my PhD. People thought I was just a, quote, carny. And I watched and listened to the way people talked to the folks that came out. And they would say things to them like, who would marry you? Why would a God create you? Why don't you kill yourself? And worse. In the course of doing that research, I found a story that was so mind-blowing that it changed in many ways the way I see race. A group of people with birth defects, I mean severe birth defects, decided they had just had it. They just had it. And in their off season from exhibiting themselves, they went down to Florida because they had heard that there was a space down there, a place down there, some land down there where folk didn't stare at you and mock you, because mockery is one of the worst kinds of hatred. They went down there, and it makes you feel good about being a human. I'm serious. They cleared the land for 3 years. They built homes proportionate to the people that would live in them. You understand what I mean by that? In other words, for the people we now call little people, they built little homes. They created a Shangri-La, a little piece of heaven on earth. A place, my brother, where nobody would point and say, look at that. Nobody would mock them. And at the end of 3 years, when they started their little town, their little community, they put a sign right out front. And it said, whites only. And when I first heard that story, my first thought was, that's crazy. Of all people in this country, of all people in this Milky Way, they would know what it means to be mistreated. But then the other voice in me said this, why would that surprise me? They grew up in the same country as the rest of us. Isn't that right? So the same prejudices and hatreds that the rest of us had, they had. Sometimes people look at me and they say, you know, you create a Jim Crow museum. You got 9,000 pieces of hatred, which is technically not true, because some of the pieces we have are about civil rights and overcoming hatred. And some of the pieces we have are about African American achievement, which is a way of saying I will not be held down by the hatred. But most of it is hatred. Everyday objects of hatred. Ashtrays, sheet music, postcards, toys, games, and all. And I said, why would you do that? Why don't you just let us forget about all of that? One of my answers to that is this quote from Dr. King. If you read Letter from Birmingham Jail, which is arguably the best well-written letter. I hope there's not somebody here teaching English. It's just a really, really, really good letter. If you read it, it's a public letter. It was written to some specific people with a larger audience in mind. In that letter from Birmingham Jail, he said this, and I'll paraphrase it. You see the actual quote behind me. If you're really going to deal, America, if you're really going to deal with racism and any other kind of injustice, you got to treat it like a boil. No more Band-Aids, no more saying there's nothing wrong with me. Treat it like a boil, lance it, and let all the pus come out. And that's what we do every day at the Jim Crow Museum. I'm going to show you some images. Some of these images are vulgar. You know, I don't like children coming into the museum. I think children should discuss race, but we should be like number 16 on the stage, not number 1. But sometimes I'll let an 8th and 9th grade class come in only if their parents come in first. The most amazing thing, each time the parents come in, there's one section. These are caricatured items of African Americans as sexual beings, as Jezebel and whores. And the parents will say, listen, you can show everything else, but this right here you can't show because it's vulgar. And my response to that is, all of this is obscene. Everything in here is profanity. We are in the business to teach. To teach. If you can't teach about injustice at a college campus, close it. Just close the door. And Reverend, I'll add something here too. And it's been a long time since I've been in the front of a church. But if you can't teach about social justice in a church, close it. That little room And in that little room, what you have are these objects of hatred. But they're not there as a shrine. They're there as tools. They're to take someone's hatred and turn it into something good, something that you can use to teach. First piece of racist object I bought was a mammy shaker. I was 12, 13 years old. I broke it in front of the person. I didn't break the second piece or the third piece, but I broke that first piece. Not because I was philosophically well adjusted for some 13-year-old. I just hated the way it looked. We have traveling exhibits. We got children in here, and I gotta be careful what I'm saying, but that target right there, it's called the Running In. And if you go on the internet, every so many years you'll find that a police department or some other federal policing agency will be being sued by some of its black or brown employees because when they went to their annual picnic, someone pulled out one of these and started shooting actual bullets at it. You can't tell from that, but that thing is this thick. Guns don't kill people, bullets kill people, but guns make bullets go really, really fast. And the speed that it would take to get a bullet through that's a high-powered weapon. But it's also a target. That's a traveling exhibit that we have. And in that traveling exhibit, it's interesting. The reason I created the first traveling exhibit was because people were like, where's Big Rapids? Ferris State University where we are. And I'd be like, where are we? Like 2,500 miles east of San Francisco, And they're like, where's San Francisco? And these are people you don't talk to. But the fact of the matter is that not everybody's going to come to Big Rapids, so I thought we'll put together some objects in there and we'll take the lessons around. And that's what we did here. And all those objects dealt with African Americans because they came out of a Jim Crow museum. The first week we take that on the road, someone says to me, you say you're against racism, you say you're against oppression, why do you only have an exhibit that deals with African Americans? I'm like, it's a Jim Crow museum. But shortly thereafter, because I did read the writings of Dr. King closer than I did when I was a 17-year-old, and when he said injustice anywhere is a threat to justice what? Everywhere. And then we created other exhibits. And I got to stop and say this every time I get a chance. I've been working using these objects for over 30 years of my life. And for the last 15 years, I've been trying to move into a place where we can better do the work we're doing. And I'm very grateful that Fred Shell and other people at DTE Energy, that they came forward, because now the Ferris State University Board of Trustees right after that voted to spend the rest of the money. And this time next year,